Deviation from true north, approximately 3 arc minutes. That is not a legend. That is survey data. 3 arc minutes is 0.05 degrees, 1/15th of a single degree, across 230 meters of stone. The north face of the Great Pyramid drifts only a few arc minutes from true. That translates to only a small lateral offset over its entire length. Built around 2560 BCE. This was built long before the invention of magnetic compasses. And we know today that magnetic north constantly moves, but true north does not. This structure aligns to the planet's axis. Multiple surveys place the error between 2 and 4 arc minutes. That is more accurate than many medieval cathedrals, and comparable to large modern foundations. So this high level of alignment was not accidental. It was, in every sense of the word, intentional. But here is the true scientific complication. There was no bright pole star in 2560 BCE. They could not simply point to a single star. They had to measure the sky. They had to observe alignment between moving stars, and they had to repeat the process. Because precision is not a single moment. It is the final result of accumulated geometric correction, verified and placed, block by meticulous block, measured across the dark horizon, night after night. So either they understood the sky with extraordinary discipline, or we are underestimating them. In this episode, we are not speculating. In this investigation, we are measuring the truth, and we're going to test just how accurate this really is.
Let's stop talking about the sky for a moment. Take a moment and stand here. This is the north face. It stretches roughly 230 meters, from this corner to that corner. When we say it aligns to true north, we mean this edge runs along Earth's axis. The deviation is remarkably tiny, roughly 0.05 degrees, 1/15th of a single degree. Now let's extend this line. Extend it 500 meters. Extend it 1 full kilometer. The drift would be less than a meter. That's about the width of a doorway. Precision cut in solid limestone. This is purely controlled geometry, not approximate, measured. But how did they find north? How did they do it without a compass? We have to look up.
So how unusual is this level of alignment? 2 to 4 arc minutes off true north. Let's compare the alignment of these structures. Many medieval cathedrals were oriented roughly east-west, but often with deviations of several degrees. Several degrees is very different from 0.05. Roman temples were carefully aligned as well, but precision varied depending on terrain and purpose. The Great Pyramid sits at the extreme end of ancient alignment accuracy, and that alone makes it remarkable. But here's the more important question. Was this a one-time achievement? The bent pyramid at Dashur is also closely aligned to the cardinal directions. So is the Red Pyramid, with deviations that are similarly small. These were certainly not just casual orientations. They cluster within narrow angular ranges across these different construction phases, even within the Giza plateau itself. Menkare's pyramid is a key example of this discipline, follows the same directional discipline. This is a very clear pattern, with small but measurable variation, which suggests the use of real surveying. This was certainly not guesswork. It was not a coincidence either, because coincidence does not repeat like this. This consistency is seen across reigns, and it is found across many sites. This whole process was procedural. The precision was not accidental at all, and it certainly was not isolated. It appears repeatedly in their work. They achieved this with very disciplined consistency. That tells us something critical. This was a proven method, a repeatable surveying process for them. That was applied at a massive scale, and it was refined over time. The small differences are important. They indicate real-world measurement. It was not about mythic perfection, but it was disciplined accuracy. So no, it wasn't a fluke. This was not a fluke. The alignment method was clearly institutional. And if it was institutional, then the method really mattered. And that method likely involved the sky. To understand how, we have to look upward. To understand the pyramid's alignment, we need to separate two different kinds of north. True north is the direction of Earth's rotational axis. It points toward the north celestial pole in the sky. Magnetic north is fundamentally different from true north. It is defined by Earth's magnetic field, and it constantly moves. In fact, the magnetic pole drifts over time, sometimes by significant distances. True north is stable relative to Earth's rotation, Magnetic north is not. A compass does not point to the axis of the planet. It points to the magnetic pole, which can differ by several degrees. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north, measured against Earth's rotational axis, with a deviation of only a few arc minutes. If you place a modern compass here, it would not perfectly match the pyramid's orientation, because magnetic declination varies by location and era. And 4,500 years ago, magnetic north was different again. So this alignment was not achieved with a magnetic reference. It was achieved with respect to the planet's axis. That immediately eliminates compass explanations. There is no evidence of magnetic compass use in Old Kingdom Egypt, and even if there had been, it would not have produced alignment to true north with this precision. This is deliberate cardinal orientation. This was not a random or accidental alignment. This orientation was not casually aimed or estimated by eye. The final placement was not approximate but incredibly precise. This level of alignment requires a celestial reference, because only the sky provides a stable directional constant, and true north exists in the heavens, specifically around the north celestial pole. But in 2560 BCE, there was no bright pole star, nothing obvious to point at, which means something very important for our understanding. They had to measure the movement of stars. They had to observe alignment in motion. And once you realize that, astronomy becomes unavoidable. To understand the alignment, we have to look up. Imagine the sky over Giza in 2560 BCE. Today, Polaris marks the north, but in 2560 BCE, there was no Polaris at the pole. The north celestial pole lay between stars. Circumpolar stars rotated around an invisible center. They never set below the horizon. One important star was Thuban, in the constellation Draco. Around 2700 BCE, it lay very close to the pole. By 2560 BCE, it was slightly offset. Another key star was Kochab in Ursa Minor and Mizar in Ursa Major. These two stars form part of a proposed alignment method. As they rotate around the celestial pole, there are moments when they align vertically, and that vertical line approximates true north. This is known as the simultaneous transit method. A plumb line establishes vertical reference. The observer marks the direction on the ground. Repeat the observation across multiple nights. Average the results, and error shrinks dramatically. But there's another factor. Earth's axis slowly wobbles over time. This motion is called axial precession. It shifts the position of the celestial pole. That is why Thuban was near the pole then, and slightly offset during Khufu's reign. That shift affects alignment precision, and that error is measurable. So the sky was not static, it was dynamic, and aligning to true north required timing, patience, and repeated observation. The challenge was real. There was no bright marker, only moving stars, and an invisible axis. They connected that axis to stone, which makes the achievement clearer. Not mystical, astronomical, and disciplined. And this is where precision becomes measurable. So how do you align to true north without a compass and without a pole star? One leading hypothesis is called the simultaneous transit method. It uses two circumpolar stars, often proposed as Kochab and Mizar. These stars circle the invisible north celestial pole every night. At specific moments, they align vertically in the sky. When that happens, the imaginary line between them points close to true north. An ancient observer watches the stars carefully. A plumb line establishes perfect vertical reference. When the stars align with the plumb line, the observer marks the direction on the ground. That mark becomes a north reference. A second marker extends the line outward. That line approximates true north. But here's the critical part. You do not do this once. Atmospheric distortion and human error introduce small deviations. Each night's measurement will differ slightly, but over multiple observations, the data starts to cluster. You then average the results to find the center, and the true direction emerges. This dramatically reduces angular error, because the sky provides a stable rotational reference. Gravity provides the necessary vertical stability, and repetition refines that precision further. Once true north is finally fixed, a perpendicular east-west axis can be constructed. From there, a square foundation emerges, with ropes, stakes, and careful geometry. Tensioned lines reduce sag for accurate measurement. Right angles are checked and rechecked. But remember, The real accuracy. The accuracy comes from repetition. This continues night after night. Measurement after measurement is taken, error shrinking with each correction, until the deviation falls within minutes of arc, exactly the range measured today. This is not mystical knowledge. It is purely procedural knowledge. It requires perfect human coordination. It takes tireless effort and unwavering discipline. Which brings us to the real insight. Precision isn't just about technology. It is the result of iteration. Every single line is meticulously measured. Every angle is thoroughly checked. And every surface is finally refined until stone reflects the sky. And that is how you connect moving stars to fixed architecture. Not through advanced machines, not through lost technology, but through observation, patience, and repeated correction. The sky provides the reference, gravity provides the vertical, mathematics provides the structure, and repetition provides the precision. The Earth does not spin perfectly upright. It wobbles, swaying slightly as it spins through the dark void. This motion is called axial precession. Over roughly 26,000 years, the celestial pole traces a slow circle. That means the position of true north in the sky slowly changes. Around 2700 BCE, the star Thuban lay very close to the pole. By the time of Khufu, it had shifted slightly, and that small shift matters, because the Great Pyramid is not perfectly aligned. It is off by a few arc minutes. So is the bent pyramid, and so is the red pyramid. But here is the interesting part. The deviations are not random. They form a pattern that appears consistent with precession. In 2000, researcher Kate Spence proposed a model. She suggested the pyramids were aligned using Kochab and Mizar. As precession shifted the pole, the alignment error would gradually change, producing a measurable deviation over successive reigns. And that is roughly what we observe. Khufu's pyramid fits within that pattern. Now, this model is debated. Not all scholars agree on the exact method. Other star combinations have been proposed. But the existence of a pattern is significant. These are tiny errors, measured in mere fractions of a degree, and they shift in a direction consistent with sky movement. That suggests astronomical alignment, not random orientation, and certainly not the result of casual surveying or simple guesswork. If this interpretation is correct, it indirectly supports the Old Kingdom chronology, because the errors match that era's sky. A different era would produce a different pattern. If the pyramid were thousands of years older, the deviation trend would not align this way. But the data proves it does, aligning perfectly with the past. This is subtle evidence, not dramatic, but they are powerful, revealing a deeper truth about history. The sky leaves a fingerprint, and stone preserves it. And when tiny angular errors align with celestial mechanics, we are no longer guessing. We are measuring time against the sky. Now we move inside the pyramid. We now proceed directly into the king's chamber, constructed from massive granite blocks. In its walls are narrow shafts. They extend outward through the pyramid's body. There are two in the king's chamber. These mysterious shafts are angled upward toward the heavens, and they exit through the outer faces. Their precise inclinations remain measurable to this day. This has led to a long-standing question. Were these shafts aligned to specific stars? One proposal links the southern shaft to Orion, specifically stars associated with Osiris mythology. Another proposal connects it to Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. The northern shaft is often linked to circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable stars. These interpretations are symbolic as much as astronomical. Now here is where precision matters. However, these stellar alignments are only approximate, and precession complicates exact matches. Small differences in date change star altitude significantly. So were they intentional? The answer is possibly. But are they absolutely certain? The answer is no. They may have had ritual purpose. They may have aided ventilation during construction. They may have served multiple roles. Ultimately, what matters most is this. They demonstrate awareness of the sky, but they do not prove cosmic encoding. They strongly suggest symbolic alignment within the worldview of Old Kingdom Egypt, and that worldview placed the king among the stars. But symbolism is not the same as proof. There is one astronomical claim that receives enormous attention. This astronomical claim is known as the Orion correlation theory. It proposes that the three pyramids mirror the three stars of Orion's belt. The visual resemblance is immediately striking. In the 1990s, Robert Bauval popularized this idea to a global audience. Now, let us examine that specific claim very carefully. The offset of Menkare's pyramid is similar, but not identical. Without rotation, the match weakens. Human perception favors pattern recognition. That does not make the idea meaningless. Orion was symbolically important in Egyptian cosmology. It was associated with Osiris, so symbolic intention is plausible. But now, let us compare that resemblance to the precise cardinal alignment. The north-south alignment is measurable. The cardinal alignment is mathematically tight. One is a precise geometric measurement of the Earth itself. Schön. One is a monument to incredible structural engineering. Schön. But geometry governed orientation. Schön. Symbolism may have influenced placement. Schön. The ancient Egyptians observed the sky with great devotion. Schön. They embedded their complex cosmology into their architecture. Schön. But the measurable precision lies in cardinal alignment, not in perfect star mapping. Schön. So what do we conclude? Schön. The cardinal alignment is mathematically precise. Schön. The other is symbolism. Schön. Recognizing the difference does not diminish the pyramid, it clarifies it. Schön. And when we separate geometry from interpretation, the structure becomes even more impressive. Schön. Let's bring this back to the ground, because stars alone do not build foundations. The first achievement was establishing a baseline, a straight reference line cut into stone, stakes placed, ropes tensioned. From that baseline, a grid emerges, right angles established, cardinal axes locked in. Then comes leveling. Water finds level without bias. Trenches were cut around the foundation and filled with water. High points were shaved down until the platform was level. This is labor-intensive precision. It requires teams, coordinated tasks, and strict adherence to reference lines. Corners fixed first. Once the base is correct, the rest follows. This is not a lone genius. It is administration, food distribution, material logistics, hierarchical oversight. This is state-level coordination. The miracle is not the stars, it's bureaucracy, it's discipline, it's repeated verification. The sky provided direction, but people provided execution, and execution is where civilizations prove themselves. Now, let's reverse the entire question. What would it take to prove this alignment theory wrong? Serious investigation works by testing failure conditions. First, Earth's axis shifts over time. Precession moves the north celestial pole slowly. So if the pyramid were thousands of years older, the pole would have occupied a different position in the sky, and star-based alignment would reflect that position. But remarkably, it does not. The measured deviation fits a fourth dynasty sky. Second, the deviation pattern across pyramids. These pyramids show slightly different angular errors, and those errors form a gradual trend, a trend consistent with axial precession. If the alignment were truly random, the deviations would scatter unpredictably. But in reality, they cluster, and they cluster in the Old Kingdom. If we push the Great Pyramid back thousands of years, the predicted star alignments no longer match. Then the entire geometry breaks. But within the fourth dynasty timeframe, it holds with a remarkable and precise consistency. And that actually matters much more than you might think, because a strong hypothesis must be falsifiable. If the pyramid were far older, we would expect at least one of these failures. We do not observe them. That does not prove the model beyond all doubt, but it certainly strengthens it. The alignment supports the conventional timeline, rather than simply contradicting it. The night sky always leaves traces, and those traces are measurable. So if the pyramid were dramatically older, we would see it in the stars. In the end, we simply do not see it in the stars. We began with a measurement, a deviation of only a few arc minutes, measured against Earth's rotational axis. We stood on the stone. We traced the edges of the foundation. We projected the drift out into the sand. Then we looked up at the night sky. We saw a sky without Polaris. We saw the moving stars above us, and a method that required patience. We followed the wobble of Earth itself, and we saw a pattern. We examined the ancient shafts. We separated geometry from interpretation, and we returned to what is measurable. The alignment is real, and it is precise. The accuracy is entirely measurable. The method is clearly astronomical. The precision is profoundly human. The Great Pyramid does not need mystery to be magnificent. It reflects the vast sky through disciplined and careful observation. It reflects the pure mathematics through consistent and steady repetition. And it reflects a civilization capable of disciplined measurement. There were no advanced machines, no lost super technology. It is, in the end, a testament to the simple power of gravity and the enduring legacy of the ancient and infinite sky.